Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today it's my pleasure to work on one of the earliest of the Penn International Gold Series. This is the Penn International 50. It's probably about as close to the original as you can get. I guess we'll see inside. There's one telltale on the inside. It would be an asbestos drag washer that would make it the earliest in the set. But regardless, this reel is in for service. We're going to show you how to take this reel apart, how to service it, and how to get it back to Bill so he can go do some shark fishing down in Florida. So if you like these kinds of videos, if you like to learn about how fishing reels were made and well, how they're maintained, how to identify problems with fishing reels and how to resolve them, that's kind of what this channel is all about. It's about giving reels a second chance, but more importantly, it's about giving you the ability to do it yourself. If you do like that kind of stuff, I would encourage you to subscribe, and doesn't cost you anything. Hopefully you can learn from it, and well, we work on all kinds of reels, not just these big trolling reels, so you'll be able to see a variety of them and augment your knowledge of fishing reels in general. Well, I just learned something. The last international reel I did, I got a comment that I looked like I was a little rough on it with the board here, and Greg called me from Maryland and says, well, I got a tip for you. You know how these tend to scrape up a little bit, and why risk scraping the side of your piece? One of the things you can do is you can go get some packing tape. And we'll do this right now. We'll call this one a bonus hint. He said just take your packing tape and put it on the side as a protective. And then go about working on your reel without the worry that you may damage the finish. Of course, with my luck, that packing tape is going to stick there and rip something off. I don't know. But it was good enough for Greg to pass that along to me, and I'm going to pass that along to you as well. Looks like I can actually use one little more piece here. So let's go do that. Well, there you go. Nothing like protecting the cover of the reel so that you do not risk damaging it. All right, old school. This is the first generation of the reels. We're going to show you how to take this reel apart. Now, according to Bill, everything works on it and just needs a tune-up. So let's go ahead and do that. And of course, if we identify anything along the way that may need a little assist, like maybe a cleanup, or maybe there's an issue with the pieces and parts, well, that hopefully is avoided because, well, this reel simply does not have a lot of parts available for it any longer. The reel is over 50 years old, and when it gets to that age, the manufacturer doesn't feel badly about not supporting the reel any longer. We start by removing the exterior pieces and parts. This is always a good time for me to tell you that if you are working on a reel, do your homework ahead of time. Get the schematic for the reel, take a look at it, make sure you know what you're in for before you start pulling pieces and parts off the reel. Another good thing to do is to develop a part strategy. And those of you that watch the channel hear me say that probably every time because, well, it's important. Just don't randomly go picking pieces and parts off and just lining them up on your bench or something. It's an invitation to get into trouble. My part strategy, well, I use a parts tray. I may use 2 trays in this one because there's a lot of small pieces and parts in there. But I use the corners of the trays for assemblies, and I haven't missed yet in terms of having the ability to do that. The second thing I want to tell you to do is take pictures. Now, I'm taking pictures on a video. You don't need to take pictures that way, but stop at critical junctions. Take pictures so you know where the pieces and parts came from. If you get disoriented, if you have to lay the project down, if there's other things that happen that cause you to possibly forget. Maybe you get some kind of a thing where you have to leave, and well, when you come back, you don't exactly remember the order or the sequence. Those pictures will help a lot. There are 2 pieces that came off here. There's a collar, and there's a little spacer washer that the handle rests on. So just make note of that. And those will go into that handle assembly. Next thing up, we're going to take this side off here. You don't necessarily need to pull everything out if you're just servicing, say, the drag washer. But we're going to show you the full service of it, and that starts with removing this whole preset assembly here. There are 3 screws for that assembly. I just want to make sure that we can loosen these first. Now, a lot of times folks will ask me, particularly on the bigger reels, what do you think about using a mechanical screwdriver? And I have my prejudices on that. I like to say generally no, because those things come with a lot of torque, and sometimes I've seen reels come in with broken screws because they were over torqued and split the heads off of them. So let's say this: break the hold if you need it, if maybe you don't have that hand strength. Break the hold on the screw first, then you can use that mechanical screwdriver to remove the screw. Do it at a low speed. On the way back in, reverse the process. Leave the screw proud, maybe a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch high, and finish tightening with your screwdriver. That way you don't risk the over tightening. When you remove those 3 screws, you can pull this whole assembly up. That is your preset assembly. And well, it's got some grease on it. That's fine. It does turn, but part of the idea behind the servicing of a reel is that you should remove the old greases and oils, inspect the pieces and parts. Like this is shellacked now. This is having a hard time coming off with a simple degreaser. And I'm using the penetrating oil as that simple degreaser. And it's kind of glued up. So that's one of the reasons why you want to pay attention to removing the old greases and oils. A lot of times some folks want to maintain the reel simply by adding oil, sort of like what you would do with an automobile rather than an oil change. Just add the oil. Well, over time the dirt and debris doesn't get filtered out of it that way, and if it doesn't get filtered out, you risk the old dirt and debris either gumming up the works or in some cases breaking a piece in part. So that's it. You don't need to remove the C-clip, but if you had an issue with this, the only thing between that button and pushing it out is a C-clip, and we've got the surfaces cleaned on that. Alright, that's going to go into my parts tray, and the 3 screws that belong to that are going to go into a corner. Next up, we can remove the lever. And I like to clean the parts as I go along. You've seen me use a little bit of a very fine steel wool. I can also use these little scrubby pads. They're just kitchen scrubbies. I don't recommend the Scotch Brite. They're a little coarse and abrasive. These are just dollar store scrubby pads. They break down quick. They're not as thick, and they are a finer grade, which to me makes a difference there in the risk of having the piece break. Take pictures again. You're going to notice 1, 2, 3, 4 screws here, 2 screws back here, and then we have the lever ring for the guide. It's important because when you go to reinstall, sometimes this screw winds up in here, or this screw winds up in here, and all of a sudden the ring doesn't fit in place and the like. Alright, we'll take the ring off first. There's 3 different size screws on this one, so make sure that you note which screw goes where. The longest screw is the one I'm removing now. It goes all the way through this crossbar here. There's an independent ferrule underneath this. It's not attached to that ring. And notice right there, it is embedded in the case. But when you go to remove it, sometimes it'll drop out. Sometimes you'll look at it and say, where did that come from? Well, that's where it comes from. The second one on this side also has a ferrule on it. This is a shorter screw because there is no crossbar here. It terminates at the end of the case. So if you've taken off your guide and you're trying to figure out which one goes where, short and long, and in the middle we just have a single screw, no ferrule, right into the side plate. That's one of the beauties of the manufacture of this reel, how precise they got in the hole locations in the light. Alright, we're going to take that out. We'll take this one out. Here's that little ferrule we were talking about. Sometimes it'll stick in a case, sometimes it'll jump out of the case. Your job is to know where it is. One of the best things to do is to take that ferrule, put it back on that screw. That screw is filled with a little bit of salt and the like, so I'm just going to use penetrating oil on the threads, let that soak in while it sits in the case. Now we should be able to remove the whole piece, and you can see this screw is longer. And we'll do the same thing here. We're just going to put a little bit of penetrating oil on there just to let it soak and dissolve the salts there. All right, now we're really up to the side of the case now. And you can see as I spin the reel now, well, that packing tape is stopping it from possibly scraping on the wood. I use wood on my bench because it's softer than metal, so most of the time you don't run into that scarring problem. But as noted from one of the viewers, they said ouch, I said yeah, sorry. So here we go, we got the answer from Greg. All right, let's take these screws out. You're going to notice that there's 3 screws that are longer. You can see the salt is accumulated in here as well. I believe all 3 of these screws are the same size now. That's 2. These go through, they hold this harness lug right here. So if you find that that lug falls out, well, that's where it goes. Good news is you got one on the other side, so you can pretty much figure that part out. Yeah, you can see that there's some of that there. One more. And then we have shorter screws that go into the reel seat. The Penn managed to do that because where that reel seat is, right here on the stand, if you use the longer screws, they come through and they could hook the line. All right, same treatment here. We're just going to put a little bit of penetrating oil on there. Take those 3 screws and place them in another corner of my box. And now we have the 3 shorter screws. And at some point, we'll see this whole side plate will start to rise up because there's a spring on that assembly that's pushing that screw, the internal workings of the lever drag, which is the pressure plate assembly. It's going to push it up. You can see how it's starting to push up on this. So don't be afraid when you start to see that happen. Perfectly normal. All right, we should be able to pull up and out on that now. I want to just reverse this so I can get those 3 screws out of there so that they don't poke away, drop and fall somewhere that I can't find them. Okay, there's 1, 2, and here's 3. And do the same thing here. Well, those are pretty clean. We'll do the same thing. We'll put a little bit of penetrating oil on it to dissolve what may be on there. Put them in a pile with the other springs. And we'll take a look at what we have. This is a single speed reel. And well, somebody used that harness like I was telling you about, almost always falls out. And for whatever reason, somebody thought this was a good idea to grease the click mechanism, but that's only a stationary plate. You can see the holes here, and the clicker is actually operated by a little ball right there that goes in and out. It's spring-loaded, goes in and out, and as it goes in and out, it's making contact, dropping in and out of these holes, and that's what's making the click sound there. Let's service the gear side first. This is kind of interesting. You can't pull the gear out. The gear is riding below the case. Well, how do you get to that? Pretty easy. On this one, this is a single speed, so they're always a little bit easier. There's 3 screws. I'm going to give me a little bit of a battle here, so I'm going to put the handle on to kind of use as a back wrench. Hold that gear steady. There's 3 screws that need to be removed from this tie-down plate. And while I'm doing this, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, or if you have a helpful tip, maybe you got a helpful tip like Greg sent in, well, leave it in the comments section. It doesn't have to be about this reel. You might have a question on anything. Maybe you're working on a reel and you're stuck. Leave that question. Just had a question come in. Somebody had asked me about setting a bail spring on a reel. And while I didn't have a video on that particular one, it was a common setup, so I directed them to another one. You're going to find as you work on more and more reels, the concepts are basically the same. The execution may be a little bit different, but it's almost always that a big gear turns a little gear. This big gear is going to turn the little gear. The difference between the big and the little becomes the gear ratio. But a big gear is going to turn a little gear, and that's going to spin something to collect the line, either a spool or a stationary spool, rotor, etc. All right, this should come off now. There we go. And you can pull out this assembly now. Sometimes this will come off. It can come off. There's movement in it. It can come off, not necessary for the cleaning aspect of it, but this holds the main shaft into that gear. When that's removed, you can see the gear is just going to fall out. And you need to do that because, well, we have that old grease behind it. You also want to do parts inspection, so it's a good time to do that. We have the same shellacked gear grease here, so I would say Bill hasn't had the reel serviced in a while. That's okay. I do recommend that you service your reels on an annual basis. You don't want to lose the fish of a lifetime. If you're going sharking, probably you want to make sure you're on your game and that your equipment is right, because that shark is going to give you quite a fight there. You don't want to lose it because something jammed up. But he's doing a good thing having it served before he goes. All right, I'm going to just use a combination of that. Again, a little bit more aggressive, not terribly, with the steel wall, but you need that to get that old grease out of there. Clean out the inner cavity. Very dry on the main gear. We're going to clean the teeth here. Apply the penetrating oil. I'm going to use a hard bristle brush to pull through. You can see how it knocks it out. And what I'm inspecting for is make sure there's nothing stuck in the valleys of these teeth. I want to get all that dirt and debris out of there. And I flick it onto a paper towel, that way I don't transfer it to my next project. All right, there you go. All right, very good. That's cleaned. Wipe the shaft down. There's not much going on with that shaft. You can grab a cotton swab and run that on the inside. Now this is only a bushing here. There's no furrows or anything on the inside. Then we want to clean the old grease here. I'll use a Q-tip for that. Paper towel here. Make sure all of that old grease goes away. Quick squirt of some penetrating oil to get it. It's got a tar-like consistency to it, so it's been in there a while. Not sure what the grease was, but whatever it is, it's been in there for a while. And we can also take the time to push out this assembly here. Now when I do this, I like to note where those tags are. Those tags are pretty much at 1 and 7. When you get on this side, there's going to be two little insets right here. So just pull that out, and you can clean off the dirt and debris in here as well. That'll clean out that inner case. And here's how that is going to operate. You have the two tags or pins, and then you have a ramp. So it's going to sit in the ramp here. As you move the dial on your lever, those two pegs on the outside, it's going to ride up on the ramp. Riding up on the ramp is going to pull the spool in. We'll show you that side in a moment. And when that moves in, that's going to engage the drag washer with the pressure plate. All right, the case is cleaned. I'm going to take a moment here, just put a little more grease back into that track underneath. Into the track. Okay. We have a bearing in here. Clean it, test it. It's running fine. It ran fine in the pre-test. And then there's something on the back end of that. And I oil the bearings. You can, at your discretion, grease them. All right, here's your 2 pins, right on each side. You won't get that bearing in unless those pins are located in those channels right there. And then I want to turn it over and make sure that I'm at 1 and 7, and I'm not. I'm at the opposite, so I'm 180 degrees away from the way that I found it. So I'm going to move it back this way. Okay, we're all set there. That piece is done. Just going to use a pick here. There was a little bit more dried grease. And with that done, then we can do 2 things. We can bring our main gear over. I just noticed there's a little bit of dried grease that I didn't get. We're going to grease the main gear. And as I say, generally speaking, on almost every one of my videos, please use fishing reel grease. I'm using Penn Precision reel grease for this. It's a Penn reel. That's not the reason I'm using it, because it's a fishing reel grease. I pretty much use this grease on all reels. But please use a fishing reel grease. It's designed for marine use. You can use the other stuff at your own risk. Okay. I'm going to take that main gear and just kind of set it there, and then we can put the post in after we put that main gear in the case, because again you have that indent down below. Bring that over, kind of align the holes approximately, and do the final alignment there. Get those 3 screws that belong here, and that will complete the assembly. Of the gear side service. And take your time with this. If it's not set right, you can grab the shaft to spin that a little bit to get the holes lined up. Probably need to use that handle as a wrench again. That's one. Those of you that know me, and these little screws don't play well together. So just be patient, work your way through it. You'll be fine. And after we get these done, we'll go over to that spool side. We'll show you how to service the back end of this reel. Kind of get it back together again, back to go fishing. We'll also find out, I guess, if this is the absolute first edition of the reel with that asbestos drag washer. All right. Oops. I apologize if this seems like it takes a while, but this is real time. And one of the things I like to do in my videos is to not edit them out, not speed them up or anything. I like to be realistic about it, because I want those of you that are trying to do this yourself to appreciate that speed doesn't necessarily win, and I want you to appreciate how long the actual service is going to take you. That way you can plan that if it's a 45-minute exercise, that you have 45 minutes to do that, and not think that it's going to take you 20 minutes because, well, the video's been edited down and somebody thought that it'd be better to show all the steps fast than be realistic about it. So, my quirk, but my video also. All right, I'm going to pull the axle shaft out at this point. There's 4 of these little tension washers. Make sure you get all 4 of them when you pull that out. There's 2 sets to this. We can clean this side first. This is your axle shaft with the tension washers. Again, you want to make sure that as you do this, that it's all clean. That's inspected. chances are you're going to find dirt in the teeth on the back end of this. Let's do the same thing. I'm going to use that penetrating oil, pull it through, inspect the teeth, make sure that I don't have anything stuck in there. And chances are you'll probably find the same thing on this. This is your axle shaft, which will move in and out and will pull the spool in. Your 4 tension washers, clean them. They are bowed, so convex, concave, never get it right. Whatever it is, one side is got a belly, one side is raised. Make sure you know that. Again, clean them all up. From the factory, belly faces up, belly faces down, belly faces up, belly faces down. You'll notice you have a space in the middle there. That's because of the way that they set. If you want less flexibility in your tensioning of your lever, flip them all around, face them in the same direction. That'll close that gap and well, make it less play in that, but most of the time it'll be that 4. Here's the query that I always get on this one. It's kind of crazy, but we have 4 of the smallest screws in any fishing reel here. I'm going to use a micro screwdriver to get those out. Later editions of these reels use the screw-on plastic cap. This is the earliest version. Again, the engineering is kind of incredible, how they line up the holes in the ring. Little things amuse me, I guess, or inspire me or awe me. You're going to see that this is going to start popping out now once you relieve the tension. That's because that spring that we were talking about that pushed your gear side cover, also kind of held in by this side, and well, it's releasing its tension now. This is always the nervous part for me because I have 3 of those very small screws in there. Don't want to lose those. Again, another place in my parts tray for them. And a special eye on them because you saw how when you release one of these springs, the tension kind of shoots. So you don't want to lose one and kind of leave it absent because you couldn't find it. All right. Again, a little bit more cleanup here on the inner ring. This is our pressure plate and our drag washer, and this is a later edition. This has an HT100 backing on it. So it's not the first one. Now, Bill sent me 2 reels. The first one actually did have a piece on it. Check the cross hatching on this. You need to be able to see the cross. This one is in very good condition with limited use. Here's your spring we were talking about. Take pictures again. And if you find that you have some clogs in here, take that same brush you were using to clean the gears and pull through on it. That will pull out any dirt. Sometimes these things start to wear, and that traps in the crosshatch. So just pull it out, and that'll preserve and maximize what you have left. These washers are no longer available. So if it's worn beyond use, your reel just became a parts reel because you cannot find these. Okay, we're just going to set that aside for a moment. You want to make sure your pressure plate is clean. And again, what's going to happen with this is to engage the drag, it's going to pull this in and lock it down. So that's how the premise of a lever drag works as opposed to the star adjusters. Okay, got that cleaned up. This cleaned up. Going to oil the bearing. Make sure we got oil on the other bearing. And we can start the reassembly. Take that shaft and bring that through. That works. That's going to help with the alignment for the plate. Next up is your spring. And we could put, let's do that. We could put a light coating of grease onto this because it's going to run through this back end. It's moving in and out on that that pressure plate that we're going to load in right here. It's going to move in and out, so a little bit of grease doesn't hurt there. And then this is where your strength is kind of required. And because those holes are so darn small, kind of a steady hand as well as you try and load the smallest of all of the screws, right? So it drives me nuts. So as much as I'm enamored by the design and the engineering and the ability to get all of this stuff done precisely, it is one of the hardest screws for me to put in. Alright, I'm going to start it outside. I'm going to try and line it up by eye and see if we can't get it started. I think we did. I think we got lucky there. Alright, we're going to go opposite. I'm going to spread the tension on that cover, and if I can get this one done, and the other two become easier. And I haven't tightened them all the way down. I'm just trying to get these started at this point. I don't have that one. We're going to eye it up again. You need a little bit of hand strength here to hold this plate in place at this point. I don't have it yet. I'm going to try to align the second one over here with a pick. That should help this one. Okay, that helps. All right. Two more. And I appreciate you bearing with me, but again, most of this is in real time. We like to give you a real view of doing this. Maybe you'll have better success with these. All right, that one went good. We finally got that middle one back in there. It's all a matter of that alignment the first time. Then okay, we've just finished tightening up the last of these, so we can set that assembly aside now, and we can move on to the last piece of cleaning. Now, I did take my glove off for a moment there. The hands are just getting too sweaty to work, but I think we're done with the cleaning stuff anyway, so we just want to do a little bit more around the back end of this. There's one more bearing in here. These are huge bearings. You rarely ever see these bearings fail, but if you want to make sure that you keep the dirt and debris away from that so that it doesn't clog a bearing and interfere with its performance. These are your anti-reverse dogs. They will hold the reel from turning backwards. There are two springs that go with these. Just make sure that the reel is clear of any obstructions. And again, we have some shellacked old greases in there, so we want to make sure that that gets away so our performance can go unimpeded. Same thing on this side. That will slow the anti-reverse dog down. Clearly we don't want that to happen. Flip them in the clockwise manner. Okay, all good. And if we didn't do that before, oil the bearing. We'll throw a little bit of oil into the back end. Now we can take to installing our spool. To install the spool, aim your back plate in and then rotate that as if it were spinning. Make sure that that seats your anti-reverse dogs. Next up then, a little bit of grease onto the pinion gear / axle shaft. That will intersect with our main gear. And then we can bring the plate on for the main gear assembly. Note your 3 holes in a row are for the reel seat, so we're facing up on this. Bring this in, match it up with your screw holes, and then we'll try and get one started here. Now again, you've got room here because that spring is not compressed. Once you've seated your main gears, let's bring this over. This one has pretty much got a clear line of sight here, so let's start with that one. Again, you've got the spring pushing against this case, so it's going to have to be pulled down quite a bit. All right, we got it started, but I'm not going to let it go all the way. I just put the second screw in here. We're going to try and get this one started, and then one more over here, another of the long screws. Now that one on the other side is going to have to be moved because that is the one for the ring tie down. But I did want to get this started. And to do that you need equal compression. Alright, find your lug harness, harness lug. We have the screws go in there. And it's just an iteration now. Make sure you get through the hole into the collar. Bring that in. Then I'm going to remove this one because that's the one that is for the guide ring. And you want to do this so that you keep the equal tension on the plate as you're going in. This one goes up here. Make sure you cycle through the lug into the side plate. And now we can tighten down the ones that we have in there. And there's two more wheel seat screws that still need to be tightened. And we'll do this kind of in a northeast-southwest pattern. We're going to tighten one down here. Tighten the one on this side. And we have the two more for the base. So take your time with this. Again, we talked early on in this video, if you're still with me, about using the mechanical screwdriver. If you do, just don't tighten it down all the way with that mechanical screwdriver. Leave it so that your last turn or two is by hand, and that way you won't risk breaking off the screw heads. Alright, I think we got these now. We can install that guide ring. And to do the guide ring, again, we have a long post with the collar, and we left that on. We have a short one with the collar. We took that collar off, so let's put that back into the inset here. And again, when you have a parts tray or whatever your parts management system is, you know where all these parts are, and that certainly makes things a lot easier. Alright, collar and shorter screw goes in the case on this side. Collar and a longer screw on this side, which goes into the post. Then we have the short middle screw. Okay, as previously noted, these pegs should be in the 1 and 7 position. That's going to enable you to be in free spool on this side. Let's bring our lever arm adjuster over, and that should sit on the pegs now in that neutral position. Now we can go get the collar next. There's a flat bar that needs to match up to the slot in the center. Kind of eyeball it bring it over. And if you don't have it exact, just keep this even and just rotate. Once that slot falls in place, bring your screws over. There's 3 of them. They're all the same. They all have tapered heads on them, so they can go in either position. Make sure you tighten that down. Now to put pressure onto your preset, you tighten clockwise to remove pressure and allow more swing on your first strike. You turn it counterclockwise. I'll show you how to set that in a moment. Okay, that's the piece there. Next up then is our collar that goes on. And we have the washer that rides under the handle. The handle is next. Alright, still hear the crinkling of the packaging tape on the other side. I think that's probably a good thing. Use your wrench to align the scallop while tightening the screw down. This is always a little one of finesse here because this extension sometimes doesn't align quite exactly, but I think we got it right that time. Alright, bring that in. Tighten this up, we'll be ready for a test. Okay, let's clear some of the stuff off the table here. Bring our pliers out of the way, our oiler out of the way. Let's get this stuff off this side here. Probably should have remembered what piece I put on first here. Okay, all good. We'll clean up that side plate in a moment. So, all right, so we should be in free spool now. And we are. Actually, it's going to spin the other way. Sounds like we have our clicker mechanism in. Good there. Let's bring it into gear here. Bring it all the way over. We're still light on that. Spins nicely. First strike. Drag is set. Bring it all the way back. Again, spins nice and free and easy in the trolling mode. First strike. Bring it over to max. We've got it. Okay. Wow, that's quite an effort there in terms of how to service one of these. But came with the narrative, came with some do's and don'ts, and now it's ready to go fishing again. Well, I hope he does well. Hope he lands some sharks. And this one's ready to go fishing again. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, and everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. Thank you for all it is that you do, your career choice, and your dedication to task. Thanks to everybody who's watching. Thanks to everybody who's made the channel successful and what it is. And if you have any questions, again, please leave them in the comment section. And if you like the video, again, please like it. It helps in the rankings of the videos and helps in the rankings of the channel. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day.